Ooh. Okay. Oh, just gotta do this. Just gotta start it. Okay, this is possibly the scariest thing I've ever done, and I've been on YouTube 10 years. Which is... yeah, it's difficult to describe quite how I'm feeling right now. But, just gotta start it. Just gotta do it. This is the whole point of this, right? For those of you who've never seen my face before, because I'm aware that's gonna be quite a few of you here, hi, my name's Anna. I'm 22 years old, I'm from the northwest of England, and this is my new channel. This is a new venture of mine that I've toyed around with in terms of the idea and the concept, and have put off starting for so long. And today, finally, was the day I decided to sit down and actually film the first episode. So, hi. I'm going to explain a little bit more about who I am and what this is, and just essentially, I mean, you've seen the title, you know what this first episode is basically about. Yeah, so I'm gonna explain it, but this is a new venture of mine. Welcome to Playing in Politics, which is my new podcast. I think I can describe this as a podcast. It's basically just like long form content. So I guess it's a podcast. So yeah, Playing in Politics is the name I'm currently sticking with. I'm not sure if I want to do it Playing in Politics or Playing with Politics, because the concept of this, which is going to become clear as we progress through this, but the concept of this is basically that I'm going to talk about politics. So for this first episode, it's basically going to be kind of my story as to how I got involved in politics, and basically how you can too. It's, you know, I'm a young person, I've been involved in politics since the age of 18, so if anyone else is wondering as to how they can sort of get their foot in the door when it comes to, you know, like having like your opinions in politics and perhaps being involved with a party, you know, this is how I did it, so this is going to be kind of the bulk of this episode. But as well as talking about politics, I'm also going to be doing my makeup at the same... that I just knocked over. I'm going to be doing my makeup at the same time. So the name kind of came from kind of like, you know, you might hear phrases a bit like someone's, like if someone's kind of first getting started into using makeup, you might hear them say like, oh, you know, this person's like playing in makeup or playing with makeup, you know. So I'm not, so I kind of smushed together kind of the concept of makeup or politics, because it kind of links in. It's you know, the same sort of thing. You know, I'll be educating myself and also you about politics, whether it's current affairs or events and administrations that happened in the past. Whatever it is, you know. I'm not sure whether to go with playing in politics or playing with politics. I'm not sure. Playing in politics was the first thing that came to my head, but if playing with politics sounds better, I don't know. I'm leaving that up to you, the viewers. And that'll be the case kind of throughout this. You know, you guys get to decide kind of what topics I talk about, or if there's something going on in the world at the moment that you guys want me to talk about, then, you know, leave your suggestions in the comments. You know, this is determined by you, essentially. I will say keep it to the UK, at least for the time being. Anything else that's going on kind of around the world is not something that I necessarily have the nous to necessarily talk about just yet, so because they keep it in the UK. But yeah. A little bit about me before we start. And also because I'll be talking about how I got into politics, and I got into politics in 2019 when I was just turned 18 years old. I'll be doing my makeup routine from 2019. I went back on some of my some of my old videos from 2019, so I did a lot of research as to how I used to do my makeup, and as well as just the memories that I have. And yeah, so I'm going to start with that, whilst also telling you a little bit about me, and also starting the story as to how I got into politics, and my tips on how you can too if you're thinking of doing that. So yeah. We're just gonna start this. This is not something I've done before, and But so if I seem a little awkward despite being on the platform for a long time, like I'm about to talk about, that is why, because I'm not used to doing kind of get ready with me chatty content whilst I talk about politics. Also I'm probably not going to edit a lot of this as well. That's around like 3 disclaimers I want to make before we fully get into this story. One of which I'm going to tell you after I've sort of talked a little bit about myself and my history with this platform. But the first one is I have a Notion page here on my laptop, which you can't see, which is basically a script for this video that I wrote like, what, 3 or 4 months ago, when I first sort of was like, I'm going to do this series, and originally it was going to be on my main channel, not separate channel completely. But I'm going through this and I'm like, yeah, okay, I've got a good map out of kind of part of my story, but it is full on a script. Like, it's a full on like script with phrases and jokes and things in it. I'm not going to be sticking to that like fully. I'll probably need to revert back to it. So if you see me looking here, that's because I'm looking at my script. If you see me looking here, it's because I'm looking at my mirror, which is here, which I think you can kind of see the top of there. And my makeup and everything is laid out on my desk, which you can't see. And also I'm gonna change the background, like things, this is clearly a first episode, the background's not done yet, like it's obviously in my room, but I'm in the process of doing the walls and everything. So that's the first, it's kind of like the first two well, that's kind of the first disclaimer out of the way. The second one is I'm not going to be editing this a lot, because I just feel like when a podcast is a podcast, it's better if it's not that edited in terms of kind of what's being said. Also, I do have a stammer. You might have noticed in the few minutes that we've gone through so far. I do have a mild speech impediment, and I want to bring some awareness to that, which I don't usually do on my main channel, so just leaving in a few of the times where I perhaps am struggling to speak, which will happen because, as I say, that part of my brain is slightly broken, so I will be keeping those in to spread awareness. You know, there's a lot of things I want to do with this channel, and the third disclaimer is going to come when we start talking about politics. So a little bit about me, whilst I start with the Simple Rich Moisturiser, which is a very squish bottle. I'm very good at squeezing the bottles really hard, which is original product, well, not original, from 2019, like I said, we keep repurchasing them as we run out. Should have phrased that properly, but I have been using this for a long time, so this is like an OG part of my routine. So whilst we prep the skin with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about me. So we're kind of, this is when I get my flow into it. So as I said at the beginning, with my little like awkward intro, I have been doing YouTube for 10 years. I started when I was 12 with a channel that I'm not going to name the name of because it is still on the platform. I'm probably going to go back to it in September when it will be my 10-year anniversary. So you guys can, if you want to go over to my main channel, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, you'll see some embarrassing content from when I was a child. I've had my main channel, which I'll pop up here because I've just tried to say it about 3 times and it's not coming out. I've had for about 8 years. That channel primarily is a mixture of everything. I mean, the clue is in the name with the random aspect, you know, the clue's in the name there, and that I pretty much do anything over there. It's lifestyle, it's mental health, it's empowerment. I'm actually currently going through a bit of a rebrand at the moment in terms of my social media presence, hence I'm starting this new channel, really, because I really want to do what I actually really want to do. So that's kind of, so I've had a lot of YouTube experience, just not in kind of the long form podcasty type thing. And I've been watching a lot of like podcasty type content. Sometimes I have it on the background if I'm doing something else, or I just really enjoy it. Primarily the inspiration for this particular concept, or this new venture, was Bailey Sarian and her true crime series that she has over there, which is the same concept, concept as this, is that she talks about a true crime story and does her makeup at the same time, and I really enjoy that format, you know, because obviously it's something really, really heavy, but it kind of gives, I don't really want to say like a light-hearted element, but it makes it a lot more relaxed and a lot more easy to digest the way she delivers it, and like as I say, the makeup aspect makes it a lot less intimidating compared to a lot of other true crime stuff you might consume. So that's why, and her personality really does shine through. And I related to that a lot, and I thought it was a really good concept. So when I was thinking of talking more about my politics and just current affairs, because I've wanted to do that for a while, as soon as I was starting to think about that, I was originally going to do this on my main channel. It was the concept that first came to mind. I was like, oh, well, this makes sense, because I also really like makeup, and really like politics, so if I was going to do it, then, you know. But the reason I started a new channel is because when I was thinking about it, I was like, this is a little too heavy of a topic for what I talk about on my main channel. It doesn't really fit. And with my journey being a little bit up and down, and the algorithm not exactly liking to pick up my videos quite consistently, I thought, you know what? For the first time in about 7 or 8 years, I'm gonna wipe the slate clean completely, and basically start a new channel. So that's what I've done, just to make sure it's a clean slate for the algorithm, to hopefully see a little bit more success and just kind of have a bit more of a focus on one topic, whereas my main channel, as I say, is a lot of different things. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, that you need to know, just kind of context as to, you know, why I started this channel, what this is all about. But yeah, in terms of getting into politics, now, Notion, mirror, Notion. When it comes to politics, I feel like there are two types of people in this country. There are the people who get really angry about it and are really passionate about it and have a lot of opinions, and then there are those who just remain peacefully oblivious to what's going on, and the latter half of that was me until the age of 18. For a little bit of context about my family history, whilst I prime my eyes, this is the NYX eyeshadow primer, which is changed from what it was in 2019. It didn't look like this in 2019. It was like the photogenic one, which was still in a tube, just not like this. It was just like a normal, almost like a lipstick applicator tube, whereas now it's like a squeezy tube. And actually, it's the same product pretty much, it's just they have different shades in it now. Yeah, they used to do like a clear one and then one with pigment, and I used to use one with pigment, still do. So while I prime my eyes, because my eyes are like weirdly oily, so I need to prime them. Anyway, so as I said, so the context in terms of kind of before I really got opinionated, kind of what the political situation in my household is, my dad is kind of ex-teachers union, very Labour, very like hardcore Labour, whereas my mum is Conservative, and her side of the family is very much Conservative and kind of always has been. So I was always very sort of oblivious and confused at the dinner table, because the same sort of topics would always be brought up in debates, and apparently they didn't used to really talk about politics that much until Gordon Brown got in, apparently. They got married when Tony Blair was still Prime Minister, but as soon as Gordon Brown got in, that's when all the debates started, which is always very strange. In terms of my opinion, and this is the third disclaimer I was going to make, because this is very important for me to say, just as a bit of a, you know, this is how this is going to work. And, you know, I don't want this to just be an opinion piece, you know? Like I said, this is supposed to be kind of educational in a lot of ways. However, I'm not going to claim to be unbiased, because I don't want to be. I do still want to inject quite a few of my opinions into this channel. So for those of you who need to know, who want to know my political leanings, I have been a member of the Conservative Party since 2019, the end of 2019, like October. However, that does not mean that I'll be kissing the ground that Rishi Sunak walks on anytime soon. I am, you know, I say I'm a Conservative member, and I am Conservative in terms of like my economic values. Socially, I do lean quite liberal. And this has caused a bit of controversy whenever I try and have debates with people who are like Tory, because I'm a massive ally for the LGBTQ plus community. I will stand by trans rights until the cows come home. So as I say, and when it comes to climate change as well, I mean, I will denounce people like Just Stop Oil, again, the kind of till I'm blue in the face, but I do believe in clean energy and clean air and all that kind of thing, and it's like, for instance, now, kind of we're beginning to, like, we've just gone into August in 2023, and Rishi Sunak has just granted a load of gas and oil licenses in the North Sea, which I don't agree with. So just so you're aware, economically I do lean Conservative, and I am a member of the party, but I also really fight for freedom and kind of not the kind of Tory policies that people like to label as like, oh, down with the Tories. You know, I like to fight for fair and proper Conservative values. So whilst as I say, I'm going to try and keep this educational, I will be putting my opinions in there. I'm not going to shy away from that. And I will be putting that kind of disclaimer in front of all of the episodes, probably, you know, I need to like actually write a disclaimer that I can actually just say at the beginning of each episode, but seeing as this is the first episode, just want to make this relaxed. This is an introduction to me, this is an introduction to politics, me and politics, you know? So, yeah, getting that disclaimer out of the way, and, yeah, so that's kind of the context of how I grew up, and also my leanings now. And then we're going to get into how I went into those leanings and how I got involved in politics, and how you can too, because that's the whole point of this. So yeah, I just did the primer on my eyes, by the way. And whilst I was looking back on some of my old videos, I remember that I used to do this. 2019, we weren't fully into like the soap brow trend yet, were we? We were all still very much into kind of well-defined brows. I think we were leaning more into kind of like the feathery side of things, but we weren't quite in the just gel and nothing else. Like, we were still, you know, this was pre-COVID, right? So this was still when people were wearing quite a lot of makeup. This palette, by the way, you can't even get it anymore. This is actually OG 2019. I've had this since like, yeah, I think since the start of 2019. So this is quite apt. That I'm still using this 4 years later. It's eyeshadow, it hasn't burned me yet, so it's fine. But this is a mini palette from I Heart Revolution. It's one of their like chocolate, it's like the chocolate orange palette, which as I say, I don't think you can even get anymore, to be fair. But I remember quite distinctly, there's a brown shade up here, you can see that one that's actually hit pan, because I used to use like a tiny little speck in the middle, because I used to use this to define my eyebrows. And also when I started doing eyeshadow liner, I used to use this as well, but mostly for my eyebrows. So I'm going to find the brush that I used to use. I've got my brushes here. So I'm going to find the brush that I used to use. Hang on. This is it, right. Who else remembers when everyone was obsessed with like the Harry Potter wand brushes? I got this set of these in 2017 and I still have them because they're actually pretty good quality. This is mad. Okay, but as that, I used to, first of all, before I go in with gel, which we are going to use, I used to go through my brows with that brown shade with this. Now, this at the time was so dark for me, but since I started to look after my curls and ended up, you know, restoring my curly hair, it used to be really dark for me, but now that I've started to do that and my hair's kind of weirdly gone quite darker than it used to be, this is probably actually going to be the right shade for me, but I do remember it kind of being a bit red toned, so we'll see how this looks. I don't know how this is gonna go. Okay, so as I say, before I got into politics, I was one of those people who couldn't care less, and I was, being at 18, I was in my second year of, there goes the moisturiser, I was in my second year of sixth form, and quite a lot of people were starting to talk about politics, and this was the first time I'd heard people of my age talking about current affairs, and a lot, because it was 2019, Theresa May was still Prime Minister, and the biggest issue at the time was Brexit and the Brexit negotiations. which was a huge mess. I'm sure those who remember. Anyway, so basically, I was here starting to listen to all these people. This feels so weird doing this. By the way, I've not done this in so long. I can't even really believe that I'm remembering how I did this. Okay. But, so I was starting to hear people talk about politics for the first time ever, and was very confused, because I didn't know where I leant. I didn't know what my views were. I just remember my parents always debating about stuff, and then it always coming back to Margaret Thatcher and a cut to the NHS, and it still does, to this day. It's still... My dad always brings it back to Thatcher, and my mom always defends her in some way. That's just the way it works. Damn, this is such a throwback! Do you see how much oh, wow, okay. To be fair, okay, it does still lean kind of red. I don't know why. I think just because of the tones in this palette, they went, we're gonna put a red undertone in this brown, but yeah, no, this is so weird to do this. Oh, jeez. Oh, this is so strange. Anyway, but yeah, so it always comes back to that, no matter what. But that was all I really knew. I didn't really understand, I didn't have any of my own opinions, like I said, and starting to hear other people my age talk about politics, I was like, there was something in me that sparked, at the beginning of 2019, I made it a New Year's resolution, basically, to become informed. Like, I was like, screw this, because everyone was debating about Brexit. A lot of the people my age, you know, as is the case now with kind of people who are still kind of my age, but especially those who are kind of 16 to 18, are very left-wing. And I had a lot of people who were bashing Brexit and saying it was the worst thing that could ever have happened to this country and how it shouldn't be happening and yada yada yada, even though it had been like, what, 3 years after the referendum, and it was definitely happening now. People were still up in arms trying to cause a second referendum to get to remain. Oh god, even thinking about that time now is such a nostalgic thing. But in a way, if I could go back to that time, I would. If I could snap my fingers and go back to like 2019 when that was the biggest issue facing this country, I would in a heartbeat, just because it was a much easier time. Like, when debates were so much easier. Now things have got so much more complicated, I feel like, that we're missing the good old days of the Brexit negotiations and Theresa May getting walked all over by the EU, you know? We're going to talk about this in a minute. But as I say, so dark-ified. I've not done this in so long. But anyway, so basically, so yeah, so I was hearing all these people talk about this, and I was like, the worst thing ever, and I was like, is it? Because I don't really know. I remember when my mum went out to vote in the 2016 referendum, I told her to vote Remain because I didn't want to pay for a visa to go abroad. And that was the only thing I knew at that point, and that was me at like 15 years old. And she ended up voting Leave, even though she didn't actually know which way to vote because the campaign was so confusing. We'll do a whole episode on Brexit, I'm sure. But as I say, so I was thinking about, you know, I was hearing all these people having meltdowns all the time and really just bashing the Tories and just like, Jeremy Corbyn is God, and his money tree, you know, that was the way that it was. And I, as I say, at the beginning of 2019, by the way, I'm using the Essence Make Me Brow Gel, which I've been using since 2018. Still a great product, and it's only like, what, £3? I think it's gone up a little bit because of inflation. This one was a little bit more expensive than what I remember it being, but yeah, I'm still using this, and then I'd go over my brows, even though I filled them in with eyeshadow, I'd go over them with this, and that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, at the beginning of 2019, I was like, you know what, I need to figure my life out, I need to know where I stand, I need to understand this Brexit stuff, I want to know, I want to be able to debate this, because this is important. Like, how the country is run is, like, at least knowing how the country is run is actually really important for me to know, especially as a young person, and this is something I would say it is very important. I agree with my mindset at that time, and I still think it's very important, and you know, I'm a little bit more involved in it now than just kind of having the opinions and, you know, talking about it. You know, I've helped out in elections now, so, which we'll get onto. But yeah, at the time I was very much like, well, it's important that I understand how the country's run and what's going on in the world and how it affects me and yada yada yada. So as I say, the beginning of 2019, I was like, right, I'm gonna get politically involved. You know, I'm gonna start using Twitter. I'm gonna start reading more Twitter, and you know, I'm starting gonna, which we'll get into. Which, you know, R.I.P. Twitter. Also, what the heck is my brows? I remember this being a thing. I would do it. I would put the eyeshadow through my brows, and then it would just blend everywhere because of the gel. So this is messy. This has gone so messy. Oh jeez, why did I do it like that? Now I understand why I stopped putting eyeshadow in my brows, because it just becomes a bit of a mess. It just smudges everywhere, which is just great. Yeah, okay. Plus always this eyebrow gets way too much gel in it. We're just gonna deal with it. This is how I used to do my makeup. This is the whole point, it's nostalgia. And this is why I don't put eyeshadow in my brows anymore. See how much darker that one is to that? Isn't that mad? But this used to happen all the time, and it was absolutely insane. Anyway, moving on. So the beginning of 2019, I was like, right, I'm going to start using Twitter more, I'm going to start getting more politically involved, and I'm actually going to form some opinions. And I remember me thinking, I was like, oh, I'm just going to support whichever party's, you know, in power at the time and just to go with it and see how things go. That, I remember being the phrase that I said to myself. I was like, right, this is how we're going to start out, and we're just going to see how this goes. So obviously, Theresa May and the Conservative Party were in at the time. Conservatives are still in. Woohoo. Well, a bit woohoo. I guess I say I'm not polishing Rishi Sunak's shoes, you won't find me doing that, but, you know, still good that the Conservatives are still in. But, yeah, so that was my mindset at the time. And, to be fair, the thing that really started my political journey, I mean, I already had, a friend that I knew was Conservative, like, that was, he wasn't a member of the party, but that was where his views sat. And there was somebody else I met who, just once that I talked to, who was friends with my friend who was Conservative, who was also Conservative, so that was interesting to see, to at least hear someone of my age who wasn't Labour. You know, so that was interesting. Also, the fact that I've had to just restart this, and the exposure's gone, like, better. Anyway, that's fun. So that was interesting, because most people I talked to were, as I like to say at the time, sat comfortably in the top of Jeremy Corbyn's money tree at the time. I'm sure you guys remember that phrase. And were perfectly happy to sit there and just spout whatever and spout hate about the Tories and yada yada. So to hear somebody who was Conservative, who was my age, sparked a curiosity of like, maybe they're not all that bad. And then I met a boy. Ha, here we go. This is, then to be fair, this is not obviously a story I'm going to go into, not going to air my personal laundry out on here, but because it was like an almost 4-year-long journey, of on and off with this person, but they are the reason I got into politics. It was really a match at the right time, because this person was again, same as me, 18 years old, but was a paid-up member of the Conservative Party and an avid Brexiteer. And oh my god, I needed that at that time, because that really, obviously I wanted to impress this person, and so basically as a result, started to just get full on into politics and just like listen to everything and just really fake that. I remember, because I didn't know about party memberships at that point, I had no idea, completely clueless, right? I mean, he was asking me if I was a member as well, or at least he said that he was a member, and then I said same, because I thought member meant supporter, because I was stupid at 18. And he was like, really? You remember? I was like, yeah. And in my head I was like, I think so, I'm not sure what that means. So I faked everything in the beginning, and I was just like saying like opinions that I had just based on assumption, which were correct assumptions, really, in hindsight. You know, I was using my common sense and my logic, which is a skill of mine that I still have to this day, and it was working, and this person was actually really impressed, and I felt nice, because I was a people-pleasing, very lonely 18-year-old. But anyway, as I say, not airing my dirty laundry on there, but because of this person, they were avid on Twitter, and also watched Question Time on the BBC. Which brings me to my first tip, the first couple of tips. Whilst I do that, I'm going to start my eyeshadow. Now, it was interesting going back on my YouTube videos in 2019, because I remember I used to do this. I did nowadays, because as you can see, my eyes are slightly hooded. So if I'm blending something in the crease, I go kind of above my crease and kind of blend it almost all the way up to my eyebrow, so you can see it, and it's a lot more flattering on my eyes, and I tend to do kind of more a winged out look now. An iconic part of my makeup now is that I always do kind of wing liner, whether that's like a smoky liner or just like a sharp one, always with eyeshadow. Back in the day, however, I didn't do that because I was scared of eyeliner. I didn't understand you could just use eyeshadow. So I used to just stick to the crease, just like kind of you're about to see the way that I did it, because I'm gonna just do what I used to do. But it was just in the crease. You could barely see it above here, and it was a very sort of a rounded shape, which didn't look terrible, but it just wasn't very flattering for me, and it was just very basic. But I used to think I was great at makeup, when really I learned at university, I got better, but yeah. So this is going to be quite triggering to do now. Because I'm going to look at myself and I'm like, this isn't me. This isn't me. But it's going to be the weird, because it's going to be like, this is me in 2019, just with different hair now. Completely different hair. But anyway, so my first tip for anybody trying to get into politics is, especially if it's in the UK, now I don't watch Question Time now. I don't watch it, I don't watch anything from the BBC pretty much, unless it's like a TV show, like Doctor Who or something, which was an intrinsic part of my childhood, fun fact. So, you know, but in terms of like the news and anything on the political side, I don't watch, because quite frankly, I very firmly believe that the BBC is the most biased mainstream media platform, and is like undisclosed bias, and I have a lot of problems with the BBC. I can do a whole episode on that if you want. You know, episode ideas, going out into the ethos there, going into the ether, but yeah. But at the time, it was a very, very, very good way of listening to different opinions and listening to MPs talk from all sides, and obviously all the sides, including the Lib Dems, were very, like, a lot more established than they are now, because the Brexit debate had definitely sparked a lot of people to be like, we stand by this stance, and we're, you know, with the Lib Dems, you remember Jo Swinson in the 2019 election, like, we're gonna have another vote on whether to leave the EU. So a lot of people had very, very firm views and very, very firm stances, and it was a good, watching Question Time on the BBC was a very good way of introducing myself to kind of how people talk and how politicians talk, and, you know, as I say, just views and opinions from all different sides. And as much as I say, I don't watch it now, I would recommend people start watching something like that, if you are just getting into politics, if you're trying to find people you relate to, or kind of people in a party you relate to, because I was watching it at the time. Here we go, this is me doing my crease, just in the crease, and this is a brush I used to use, but at the same time back in the day, oh, by the way, I use like the pink shade in this, because as I say, I used to use this palette back in the day, and I'm basically just doing what I used to do. Oh geez, this is so triggering. But yeah, literally, and I'm trying not to blend it too far high, even though my instinct's like, blend it higher! I'm like, no, I didn't used to do that back in the day. And then I used to just kind of blend it round like this. But anyway, yeah, anyone trying to get into politics and really trying to find people you relate to, watch something like Question Time. I think watching something like that is a lot better than going on Twitter. Although kind of paired together is a good mix, because that's what I did. Because I was finding, as I was watching it, that I This is so silly to do. This is so mad, but this is how I used to do it. Because I was finding I was relating a lot and agreeing with a lot of the things the Conservative MPs were saying about Brexit and current affairs, and really the only current affair at the time was Brexit, so I don't really know why. It was literally the only thing anyone could ever talk about was Brexit and the EU. And perhaps the NHS occasionally, because that's always a debate, isn't it? I want to blend this higher, right? The temptation is real, but I know that I can't because I didn't used to do that. Also, I'm aware the lighting has changed quite significantly because I decided to film this in the evening, and even though it's the 1st of August and the lighting is actually a lot better now, it's probably going to get dark quite quickly because I decided to do this when my parents were both downstairs and no one could hear me talk about this because I always get people asking me what's going on. Anyway, but yeah, as I said, I was finding a lot of what the Conservative MPs were saying were aligning with kind of just what I believed and what my opinions were based on very little knowledge. And the more I was learning, again, the more I was really agreeing because, okay, the way that I used to describe it, so we're going back to like the money tree thing with Jeremy Corbyn's Labour, and before I went Conservative, I used to say that I used to kind of sit at the base, and I've said this to people before when I've been describing this, is I used to sit at the base of Jeremy Corbyn's money tree, whereas all the rest of the people kind of my age was sat in the tree, like the tops of the trees, you know. I used to kind of sit at the base going, maybe I should be up there with you guys because you guys are on my age group, but something in me feels like I shouldn't climb this tree. And the more that I was listening to, as I say, Question Time and going on Twitter more and just absorbing more opinions and kind of the reality of what these people can be like, I was running. I was running straight away from that tree. I was like, no, you guys are not aligned with who I am, and you're still not. Keir Starmer's a wet lettuce. That's sort of this is about 2019, not now, Anna, right? But you know, so, and this is another tip I would say, don't follow the crowd. Just because the rest of the people in your age group have certain opinions in certain ways, if you genuinely feel like that's not you, and there is more out there, go and explore more. Go and find out your own opinions. This is something I'm going to really, really preach, is don't give in to the echo chambers. Do not join an echo chamber if somebody's trying to, if you do not fit a certain image, and this is the same with the Tories as well, you know, as I say, with me being so socially quite liberal, it has caused quite a lot of debates. You know, if I start talking about how I support trans rights, that especially at the moment, with the gender lobby and everything being such a big topic, that does cause quite a lot of debate. And I'm vegan as well, should have dropped that in. So, you know, I'm not exactly the typical Tory, but I'd like to say I'm a Tory who supports a good and functioning economy, but also freedom for the people and kindness and equality, and everyone being able to live their true authentic selves in harmony. That's, you know, that's where I stand. So as I say, don't join an echo chamber. If your views, so tempting to blend more, if your views don't perfectly align with what everyone else is doing, that's fine. You can have your own opinions, and I encourage you to have your own opinions and your own complete own set of opinions, no matter whether that completely aligns with what everyone else is saying or not. You know, you can lean a certain way, you can vote a certain way, that's fine. You do you. And if it's like for an independent party and not one of the two mainstream parties, fair enough, you do you. You have freedom to vote, you have your freedom of expression, you know, you have your way of doing things. Also, as going in again with that same colour, although I'm going to go with a slightly darker colour, this colour down here in a minute, just to darken the edges of my eyes. And again, keeping this very rounded, I never used to wing it out. I used to literally just do it so basic and not even really pack it on that much, so I'm probably not going to make it that pigmented either because that's not what I used to do. But anyway. But yeah, just encourage your own opinions. So that's kind of how I started, and since, you know, soon afterwards, as I say, I really got into politics because, like, this boy that I'd met who was Conservative and a Brexiteer, even after things kind of shut down with him the first time. Again, not gonna air dirty laundry, but this was an on and off thing. After that finished, you know, I carried on. You know, I carried on watching Question Time and getting more watching kind of what was going on, trying to follow what was going on in terms of like the narrative and whatever. And as I say, at the time it was Theresa May towards the end of her reign as Prime Minister, where she was, as I said before, getting trampled on by the EU every time she went because of the 2017 election where she lost the majority and blah, blah. Again, I'm probably going to do like an entire episode on Brexit and the mess and how we ended up where we are now, because I can't exactly talk about it all now. But you know, so at that time, you know, I was following the news. I was following on Twitter what was going on, and I think for a long time it was just about building my support up and learning, and it takes a while, you know, unless you're surrounded by a big group of people and you're really immersing yourself in it all the time, which I think I was. You know, I was really trying to become more politically minded every day. I decided that I was a Tory. I decided that that's where I was going to lean, and I stuck with that firmly, and I still do. You know, obviously I have my own opinions and things can waver, but in terms of the fundamentals of where I stand, as I say, that's where I lean, and that I've stuck with that since I got into politics. And as I say, for the first few months, up until like even through the summer, to be fair, when Theresa May resigned, which I still remember her tearing up at the podium outside Number 10, and it still breaks my heart because that woman was bullied out. I still believe that she was bullied out by the EU and, you know, by her MPs, and it was just, she truly loved the job, and you could see that in, you know, if you go on YouTube and you look up her resignation speech, as I say, outside Number 10, you can see the emotion and the passion she had for this country behind her, and the way in the emotion that she puts that is coming through in what she's saying. And as I say, the way she teared up at the end was just, it still breaks my heart to think about it, as much as it did at the time. And she's been quite well, she was for a while, for a few years afterwards, quite vocal in the backbenches, and, you know, she said a lot of good things, a lot of not great things, you know. I agree with a lot of what she said in the past, but not with other things, and that's kind of the same with like every MP ever. But yeah, but when it came time for the leadership debate, this was obviously the first time that we'd seen that. We've seen quite a few since, haven't we? Especially last year. Rishi Sunak wasn't voted in by the members. Remember that? He's unelected. Anyway. I really don't like Rishi Sunak. This is, you know, just to get that across. Anyway. But, yeah. And this was, again, 2019 for somebody just getting into politics was such a good year because it really introduced me, especially to just the way the system works, the way the hustings work, the way the elections work, the way debates work, you know. I remember, because I was watching a video back where that included when Boris Johnson was announced Prime Minister, and I remember, it's funny how things age, because I remember the first person at least me and my mum were supporting, because remember my dad's Labour, my mum's Conservative, so we were supporting Dominic Raab originally, and then we were supporting Rory Stewart. Do you remember him? Picture. Yeah, he stopped being an MP after he was voted out. Do you remember that? That was fun. And then we ended up between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt. Kind of ironic that Jeremy Hunt is currently the Chancellor, isn't it? It's like we're still living in a dystopia, at least for me. I'm still living in the dystopia. But yeah, so that was, as I say, for me, that year, as I say, I'm going into this shade now, by the way, and I'm darkening the outer corner and keeping it very round. As I say, I didn't wing anything out. I just kept it to my eye shape. Eyeshadow was on my eye. The eyeshadow was wearing my eye. I wasn't wearing the eyeshadow, you know? It was just so basic. Okay, it's really weird to do this now. So I want to wing this out. Oh jeez. And I'm gonna have to blend this out again with the... I didn't even think I used this brush, you know. I think I got this at the end of 2019. The brush that I probably used most, at least at the time when I was still doing this, was the same brush I was using before, which I have put down and I can't find. This happens all the time. I don't know. Where's that? Oh, I put it back in the thing. That's where it is. It's here. So I would just use this brush in that and just go, but then obviously I've screwed that up. So I'm just gonna put the excess on this eye and just blend this. Try to keep it very, very basic. Anyway, so to be fair, as I say, so 2019 was a very, very good year to get into politics, at least for me, because as I say, with the leadership election and everything, it really just introduced how this country works, and was just everything was really timed in fate very well. But as I say, in terms of doing things now, I have to say, with current affairs as they are now, yes, it is kind of complicated and a lot more chaotic if for someone just getting into politics, and I know it's probably going to be quite intimidating when you're seeing all of the madness that's going on at the moment. So I do pity those people who are like, I don't know what I'm doing, this is so chaotic, I don't know where to stand, I don't know where to look half the time. Twitter is just worse than it's ever been, and I get it. I mean, RIP Twitter, hello X, am I right? Who designed that? Sack the designer. I'm a graphic designer, by the way. Probably should have put that in the start in the intro, but yeah. I have a degree in graphic design. So for any other graphic designers out there, seeing the X logo for the first time and actually having it be converted into X is just like, we want the bird back. We want the bird back so badly. But anyway. So if anyone's out here like, oh, it's like really intimidating and blah, you know, and I get it, you know, I get it. What I would recommend, as I say, if Twitter's a little bit overwhelming, just don't use Twitter that much. Like, just don't use Twitter as your main source of news. If it's genuinely being really, really intimidating, find a news outlet that's not the BBC. Please. The one thing I will say, don't use the BBC as true facts. Like, please don't do that. Especially since they've just been exposed for lying about a heatwave. Don't use the BBC. What I would recommend is trying to find like a news channel and a news outlet that something like GB News. I mean, personally, GB News is my favourite just because not that it aligns with all of my views. There are quite a few, especially when it's talking about like trans rights issue, they constantly get TERFs on there, and I'm just like, it makes me slightly uncomfortable. But they do get like I will commend them for getting like a wide array of people from different views on there, and they do have, you know, debates all the time, so that's good. So I do like GB News. GB News is still my favourite. I just obviously have some issues with it, like I do with all news outlets, okay? This is not me bashing specifically GB News, because I can bash any, you know, I could open a debate about any news outlet, but GB News is my favourite in terms of just the way that the amount of the debates that they're able to have. Just to say, with such a wide array of people. It's getting quite dark outside, so I'm going to put my light on above here and hope that it doesn't fuck up the lighting. So give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so the lighting's gone a bit weird. I am aware. I probably would have been better putting my ring light on or not filming this when it's about to start raining again and almost at 9 o'clock at night. But hey ho, it's the way my day planned out. It won't always be like this, I promise. It's just the way it turned out. But anyway, so I would recommend finding, as I say, a news outlet that you agree with, that you feel like aligns with your values, and just go with them. And start with them and start, as I say, whilst you're still trying to sort of form your opinions on what things that are going on. Just try and healthily consume as much information as possible. As I say, if looking at Twitter all the time is making you depressed, then I get it, but just don't let that discourage you, you know? And yeah, just try and, as I say, consume as many opinions as possible and just see where you lean. At least that's what I did, you know? Moving back onto the makeup for a second, because I realised that I just kind of went on a rant there. So now that we've done this, and as I say, it's all just very rounded, nothing's really that intense at all. I'd say the lighting's changed quite drastically, but I literally used to, as I say, everything in this palette. This palette was my life. I would either use the yellow up here, but if I was doing like this look, I would use this just here, which is like the pink shade, and which I used to think was so good, and it is still quite pretty. I've been using it a couple of times recently, but it is, I've got a lot better shimmers, but I would literally just put this here on my eyes. And as I say, it's not bad, to be fair. I've used worse pigments in the past, but as I say, the eyeshadow I do now is way more intense. Like, I would never think of doing this now. I would never think of doing this subtle of a look now. Like, bruh, I'm way more intense with my makeup. I was way too timid, which, to be fair, just reflects the kind of person I was at that time. Very much a people pleaser, very much just not very outgoing in terms of just other people. My YouTube channel and everything was my outlet for that, because I had no friends. Okay. But that's how I used to do my eyeshadow. Literally like that, no joke. And we're back with better lighting. Look at that. The magic of having a ring light, ladies and gentlemen. Why did I not think of that in the first place? But anyway, this is, as I say, after about 12 minutes my camera does like cut off, so I'm having to restart this, but this is how I used to do my eyeshadow. Do you see how rounded and unflattering that is? Do you see how basic this is? This is how I used to do it. You can go back on my main channel and you can look. This is how I used to do it. But anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit more like talking about the makeup now before we get on to kind of like my next stage. So that was kind of how I first got started. As I say, this first bit was kind of just how I got my opinions formed and kind of how I started to consume more content. And as I say, that's kind of my biggest first tip to anyone trying to get involved in politics is literally just get informed, is form your opinions solidly first. Look at what's going on at the moment. As I say, you can use Twitter for that, but I would recommend also using like a news outlet, and also watching debates in Parliament. I know that Question Time and things like PMQs on a Wednesday at 12 PM. You can watch it on GB News, you can watch it via the BBC, just like their live stream, no matter what you can do, you know. I would recommend watching those debates as well, because that again gives you more of an idea of, because that really gives you more of an idea of kind of how things work in Parliament. It gives you kind of more of an education of, you know, how votes work sometimes, or like just how debates work, or kind of what the leaders are saying, or kind of what the MPs are saying, like maybe like your MP, like know who your local MP is as well, get to know that. But you know, it just, as I say, once you're dipping your toes into it, that's a good way of kind of getting an all-round image, you know. Don't just stick to one thing. It's good to educate yourselves in all areas. So that's what I used to do. More looking on Twitter, more tweeting, more reading people's tweets, BBC Question Time, and watching debates in Parliament, and watching PMQs pretty religiously every week, which I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing or not now. But anyway, moving on to the makeup, more of the makeup. So now we have this basic rounded look going on, which is very basic. The mascara I used to use was this one. Now I think that they've changed the formula of this, because I swear it used to behave differently back in the day. I know they've changed the brush. The brush looks different, but this is the Essence Lash Princess, like the waterproof one, which I'm gonna regret putting this on now because it is a devil to take off. But for the sake of nostalgia and for the sake of authenticity, this is what I'm having to use, folks. As I say, I bought this because I was like, oh, I remember this being actually quite a pretty mascara. And I was looking back on old pictures of me with this on, and I was like, oh, my lash does look really good. And I didn't want to spend on the Sky High again, even though I've now ended up spending on the Sky High again, because I swear the formula's changed. It never used to, like, crumble on me, but now it kind of crumbles on me. It's really weird. Anyway, so So as I say, I'm not gonna go too heavy on this because I swear it never used to crumble or anything, but now it kind of does, and I have to take this off afterwards, and it's a devil to take off. Yeah, it goes all like weirdly clumpy now. It doesn't cut my lashes very evenly anymore, which is really annoying. But yeah, this is what I used to use. But yeah, so this first part of this was basically how I first got involved, like my opinions. And I'd said to myself, once I actually properly learned about party memberships and what that. This is when I started to have problems with my SD card on my battery, so I'm just going to keep in where it cuts off because I think it's quite funny. But yeah, I'm trying to talk about how I discovered party memberships, but I get there eventually. I just had some trouble, so enjoy me getting cut off at random points. Okay, so I've actually got my mascara on now because I had to change SD card. My SD card ran out of memory. Should have checked that before I started filming, Anna. Point for the future. Anyway, so this first part, as I say, was just how I got my opinions formed. There's the other SD card with the rest of the podcast on it. There it is. It's going in there now. But this second chapter is kind of how I got more active. I will finish this goddamn episode if it kills me. If it kills me. I've just had to charge my camera. Despite starting this episode on a full charge, I've just had to recharge my camera. So I've just been sat here for half an hour just with my eyeshadow on. And now we can finally get into like the second part of this episode, which is how I got more active in politics. And as I was saying before my camera died, in October of 2019, I think it was maybe the 7th of October, I'm going to have to verify that, but I think it was the 7th of October 2019 when I actually officially became a member of the party. As I say, I actually educated myself on what that meant. I wasn't lying anymore like I was when I first heard that phrase, being a member of the party. And that was a decision that I took as when I went to university, because I thought, it's going to send to my university address, and it's not going to send to home, is it? Because I didn't want my dad to know. It was like a secret between me and my mum that I was going to become a member, because we didn't really know what my dad was going to say about it. So this was a secret me and my mum kept for a while, that I was a member of the party, but it did send to my home address and my mum had to hide it. Thanks, Mum. But yeah, so the reason I kind of became a member as well was because I learned about party conferences. And we're going to get into that in the second part of this video, that I'm hopefully going to get to the end of this without my camera dying again. So yeah, moving on to the base of my makeup, because as I say, this is all I used to do for my eyeshadow. I didn't even used to put it under the eyes all the time. I used to just do this and that was it. Moving on to the skin though, so I used to use the Rimmel Match Perfection foundation, and I was looking back at my old videos, like I said, and I was like, damn, my skin looks really dewy. I mean, yes, it was a lot of videos from the summer, so it might have just been sweat, but, you know, my skin looked good. Now, I'm in a weird place where I'm like, I've started to mix the L'Oreal Skin Paradise, like the water cream. This is from 2021, and I'm still using it, and it still works fine. What magic is in this, or whether I just should not be using this, because the little expiry that once open thing says 12 months, and as I say, I've had this since, like, summer of 2021, so this is probably not a good thing for me to still be using, but as I say, it still works. I've been mixing this with the Collection Hydra Serum Foundation, because weirdly, as much as this is supposed to be hydrating, it's weirdly dry on my skin. I don't know if anybody else has been having this issue with this foundation, but I've been mixing these two together, and seeing as my skin used to be like really glowy back then, that's what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to apply it the way that I used to, so yeah. I learnt about Conservative Party conferences and kind of what that was about, and the fact that it was like a networking thing that people that people could go to. Obviously, I think I'd learned that from Emily Hewitson on Twitter, who I've actually met now. I think she does still follow me back on Twitter, I think. I've actually met a few times through my political friends, which we'll get into, because once you get into like the party conferences and things, that's when you start making friends in politics, and that's kind of how things start to grow. But yeah, so I became a member because I thought I want to make this more official. I'm really enjoying talking about politics, and I'm enjoying really being involved in that. So I started to, as I say, think about maybe going to a party conference at some point, and started to really plan and try to manifest that in a big way. Of course, I didn't actually, my first conference I went to was actually in 2021, in Manchester, which is weird because this year I'm going back to Manchester in October, because it's circled back. Last year was in Birmingham, this year is in Manchester again, so that's going to be fun. Just mixing those two together on the back of my hand, by the way. Before I go with the brush first, doing that. Because at the moment what I've been doing is mixing it with the sponge first and then putting it on my face, but what I used to do is put it with the Real Techniques foundation brush and then put it on my face. That's what I'm going to do. But yeah, so after I became a member of the party, as I say, what I was doing was pretty much the same thing. Until 2021 happened. Now, in 2020, obviously, we had COVID lockdowns and things. My opinions changed quite a bit. Obviously, Boris got in 2019. I remember the election obviously was a really, really big election, because obviously the majority was amazing for those of us who were Conservative members, because it meant that Brexit was going to be delivered, you know, Boris and his oven-ready deal, which, you know, wasn't quite oven-ready, let's be real, if you remember. But, you know, we were all taken in by this, and it was great, and we were gonna really, to be fair, the nostalgia I have for the 2019 manifesto is really strong, because if it wasn't, I still believe that if it wasn't for COVID and Ukraine and like the conflict in Ukraine, the 2019 manifesto would have still worked very, very well, I believe. Like I fully believe that would have been the case. So it was a big shame that COVID had to happen, and then the conflict in Ukraine kind of pushed Boris Johnson out, because he was the right leader for the right time, and I think that is fully the case. And I really enjoyed, once I got to university and once I was a member, I really, really enjoyed talking about Brexit. And obviously with Brexit Day, I remember I went to Bolton Town Hall for the countdown, and people were trying to burn an EU flag that turned out to be not flammable, so it was a complete failure. That was a funny moment. I went to the University of Bolton, by the way, if you guys didn't know. Well, you didn't because I haven't mentioned it yet, but just so you know. So that was fun. And yeah, but then after that, obviously COVID happened, and my opinions got a lot deeper and a lot more complex, and a lot of things were changing. I mean, at first I was very much in favour of the government when everyone was trying to bash it, saying they weren't doing enough, because I thought they were doing enough. And there's, you know, again, I could probably do a whole episode on Brexit and that whole mess. Not Brexit, COVID and like the lockdowns and that, because that's a whole other topic, right? But yeah, so going back to the makeup for a second, after that I would go back with my sponge, which I used to use the Real Techniques one. This is also very dirty, I need to get a new one. But I then go over that and just sort of blend that out, because obviously you get a few streaks with the foundation. It's a good foundation brush, but you do get a few streaks with it, so I often just do go back and sort of pound that in. Which, to be fair, actually, that is not a bad way to do my foundation. It's looking nice on the skin, but I think that's just because I mixed the two products together and they work very well together. But anyway, I could do a whole episode on like COVID lockdowns and everything, but my opinions got way more complex. And then 2020, after 2020, obviously the conference didn't happen. Well, it happened online, which is quite funny because it just kind of looked like a really old early 2000s like Windows XP game is what I used. That's what I tend to describe the 2020 conference as. It was a mess. It didn't really work properly. But then in 2021, things got better. So as I was saying, I was starting to network, and this is the next step, I would say. Once you kind of established your opinions and you know people, starting to get your own opinions. Once you've got your opinions established, the next stage is networking. I'm using the Maybelline Fit Me concealer now, which used to be my OG. I used to use this all the time. Now I actually prefer the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop, just for how it looks under my eyes. Again, I think they might have changed the formula of this, but it just doesn't sit very well anymore on me. I don't know why. It used to, but now it doesn't anyway. But for nostalgia, for this being authentic, that's what I'm using. But yeah, I started to network. Now, my first networking thing really came with another content creator on this platform called Maya2C. Some of you may know him, some of you may not know him. If you don't know him, look him up. He is really good at challenging the mainstream media. He exposes a lot of, like, especially what the BBC does, and just in general just exposes like the corruption that goes on within the establishment, and he's just very good, especially with what's going on, with everything just being so crazy. He's doing a very, very good job at exposing that, and yeah, he's just great. Around the third lockdown, which was like March 2021, he started a Discord server. Discord, for those who don't know, is basically just like a chat room platform. It was originally created for like the gaming community, but can be used for all sorts. People make servers, and like you can make channels where you talk about different topics, and Maya made one for his channel. And because this was the third lockdown, obviously everyone was at home, and I'd been following Maya, and I've said this to him a few times because I'm actually like, I met him in person now, like I'm personally friends with him, you know, I've had personal dealings with him, so I know him quite well on a personal level, and but yeah, so he made this Discord server for his channel, right? Oh, the loose powder I'm using, by the way, is the Rimmel one. If you didn't know, they do a loose powder, and I've been using it for years, and it's really, really good, and I really enjoy it. But yeah, so he made this Discord server for his channel, right? At the time, he was going through a lot of like rebranding with his channel, and it was a community opportunity, and obviously because everyone was at home, after like the live streams that he used to do quite consistently back in the day, obviously like a few years ago, he used to come on after his live streams, and there was a group of us who would consistently come on, and we'd just chat and we'd play video games, and me and Maya, we really struck up a friendship. Basically, he well, I mean, really, I'm gonna be like really honest here. The only reason I'm really friends with him is because my ex-partner was one of the moderators on the server. It's how I met my ex. I talk a lot about my ex-relationship on my main channel. He was emotionally abusive, so I talk a lot about that. But in terms of my friendship with Maya, we really hit it off, and we got on really well. And obviously because my ex was one of the moderators, and I was getting close with him, I was also getting close with Maya because the links, you know. But me and Maya especially were really hitting things off, and we were really becoming friends. There were things around the Discord server that didn't quite work out, but that was the first time I met people who were of kind of like the same mindset as me, and were talking about current affairs in the same way, and because I'd followed him. Yeah, so now I remember what I was going to say, like the story of how I met Maya, really, how I started following his YouTube channel, and I've said this to him a few times, just kind of saying like, hey, you followed me on Twitter and then you unfollowed me, and that's what happened. I don't know how this happened, but in the summer of 2020, he followed me on Twitter and then unfollowed me, but then I went back and found him, and I saw he had a YouTube channel, and that's how I started watching his channel. Obviously now we are personal friends. So it's a weird story of followed me on Twitter, unfollowed me, met him kind of online through the Discord, struck up a friendship, but then didn't talk to him for a few months. I'd say things with the Discord server got complicated. Things do when you've got people of really intense emotions and opinions. Things can get kind of messy and kind of toxic, so the Discord server kind of melted away a little bit, is the best way to say it. But as I say, I was starting to network. I'd met a few people, and really my first big networking event, as I say, was Conference in Manchester in 2021, and that was the first time that I met Maya in person, and also Emily Hewitson, Peter Barnes, and just in general just a few people. I've met way more since then. As I say, going into Conservative Party Conference, and I would recommend this for anyone who is going, either to the Tory one or any other party conference this year. Just go in with it with an open mind, especially if you don't really know, if you're not meeting anybody that you know straight up, like you're just going into it blind. I would say, especially get Twitter and tweet that you're going to a conference and say, is anybody else going? Do you want to meet up? Like, make a little friendship group. That is essential. Moving on to the bronzer, by the way, I used to use the Glossier Cloud Paints, the one in Dusk. I'll insert a picture here. I used to use that. I was a Glossier girly, and to be fair, I probably should still use their products. It was pretty good. But I was having like my Glossier era spanned from like 2019 to like 2021, kind of mid 2022. Because I just love their products, and I still do, I just haven't bought from them in a while. So instead I'm going to use the e.l.f. bronzer, the putty one. Again, what I used to do with the clown paint was like squeeze a little bit on my back of my hand, like put 3 dots here and 3 dots here, and then blend it out with a sponge. But with this I literally just like smush the end into here, and then just put my bronzer on. So that's what I'm going to do. So this part's a little bit kind of updating it for what I do now, but oh well. Anyway, but yeah, that's the second thing I would recommend if you're starting to network. One, go to your party's conference, like whichever one you lean towards, go to their conference, because that's the best way to meet people who have the same opinions as you. And if you, as they want to get more active, then that's the way to do it. And I felt going into that, I did feel kind of intimidated, and yes, I did spend quite a bit of it kind of on my own, but at least I actually knew like a small group of people who like knew me and were able to be like, hey, you're part of our group now, let's keep you around. So that's kind of how I started with that. And my friendship with Maya continued to blossom, I suppose. Like we had a deep long chat about what things had happened with the Discord and yada yada, and we just spent those few days really bonding and just having a fun time, and it was the same with the people that I met through him. So I'm really grateful to you, Maya Tusu. If you're watching this, mate, hi. If anyone in that stuff was watching this, hello. This is chaotic, right? Yeah, to be fair, this is me. This is what you expect, isn't it? Chaos. Anyway, but yeah, that would be my next tip. As I say, get to something where you know you're going to be able to network, like your party's conference. And yeah, that, as soon as you start with that, the ball keeps rolling. So that was my first conference. Now, since then, and this is, also I'm about to set that with the Rimmel. I use a lot of products from Rimmel, I'm noticing, unlike my face. But this is kind of their, the natural bronzer. It used to have like a star, like a sun pattern in the middle of it. Now it just kind of has waves in it. But it's the same product. It works the same way. So with this Real Techniques brush, which you're going to see I use for both bronzer and blush, it's the same brush. Listen, don't judge me, okay? But yeah, I use that just to set the bronzer and just kind of all around sleep, roll around. Just this part hasn't changed pretty much. Okay, but yeah, things on the political front kind of paused a little bit for the rest of 2021. 2022, really since then, and things were, as I say, quite quiet until last year's party conference in Birmingham, where I met a lot more people. And it was weird because I just graduated uni, and yet a lot of the people that I've met and I'm still friends with are from Bolton. So as much as when I left uni I was like, I'm never gonna come back here, I have too many bad memories. Now I'm just like, no, I have so many good memories now because of the people I met through politics. And really, that is something I will say, is that, that's my moisturiser got off the table again. That is something I will say, is that, this is the Bourjois blush, by the way. You can't tell because it's all rubbed off, but I've had this since 2016. This is something I've had since it comes with a little brush. I've had this since 2016 and I'm still using it, and look how much product there's left in it. It's mad. Absolutely mad. I know they're back in Superdrug now. This is before they took the break and now they're back, and I'm still using the same one. Should I get a new one? Probably. Is this breaking me out yet? No. So am I going to still use it? Absolutely. Keep your judgments to yourself. Anyway, but it's a pretty colour anyway. But yeah, and this is something I will say, is that if it wasn't for politics and the people I've met through that, my social life would not be as lucrative as it is. And I am so grateful that I did get into politics, and if you're thinking about getting into it and and starting to network and meet people, do it. Just do it. Honestly, just do it, because your life is going to be so much more fulfilled because of it, really, is my honest opinion, just from my own experience. So take the leap, take the dive, and just do it, because honestly, my life personally is so much better because I got into politics and the people I've met through it, and I am eternally grateful for that. So yeah, there's the blush done. This looks so nostalgic. It's so weird. I mean, I think I've just kind of adopted some of the techniques I do now, so it looks a little bit more updated, but again, I think because just my face has changed because of the hair, and anyway. But yeah, in terms of activism, now this is kind of the third part. The third chapter is activism and getting involved in elections. Since Rishi Sunak got in, and the Conservative Party have gone downhill a little bit, and this was kind of from last summer, especially around last year's party conference to now, Westminster and being involved in Westminster and keeping up with that is just exhausting, frankly, for me. I find it a lot more productive and rewarding to be involved in local politics. Again, a lot of the people I know now I've met in Bolton, so I spend a lot of time around the local elections in May this year. I helped out in a ward in Bolton with some friends of mine, which was incredibly rewarding, and I really do encourage you to, once, you know, if you are a member of a party and if you've got to that stage and you want to help out, if perhaps you're like me and you find what's going on in Westminster like really just depressing and exhausting and tiring, and you're just like, this isn't aligning with why I started to get into politics and, you know, who I am and what I believe, I would really recommend getting involved in local politics, because you're going to find that like local councillors and people who really just care a lot about really keeping to the values outside Westminster and actually trying to promote the message that local councillors aren't the same as MPs, and you'll really find that in terms of you know, not just their words but their actions, and I feel like that is a big difference between MPs and councillors. This is the highlighter I've been using since like the end of 2019, maybe the beginning of 2020. It's not quite accurate because I used to use like the little gold like sleek palette. Do you guys remember that? But that broke, so then I got this, which I've been using, as I say, for a long time. It's a massive thing. I'm barely like, I'm not gonna reach pan on this for like 10 years. So, but it's, I mean, it is quite similar to the one I used to use. It's just white in it. So highlighter time. Woohoo! I love highlighter. I do. But anyway, but yeah, so you'll find that local councillors a lot of the time, especially at the moment, will probably align a lot more with your values and your beliefs than MPs will, and like the Westminster bubble and what's going on there. As much as keeping opinionated and informed as to what's going on there is really... Okay, so my camera has literally just died again, and to be fair, I've actually finished the makeup, like, the makeup is done, pretty much. I was just doing, like, the last step and it died, and I was like, no! So I'm literally just gonna end the podcast like this, because this is the makeup. I didn't even used to really use lipstick that much. I mean, I've been using, like, the NYX soft matte lip creams, like, for years, and I love them so much. I'm gonna try and find my lip balm a second. I use, like, the Burt's Bees lip balm. That's like, there it is, it's fallen on the floor, 1 second. So I use like the Burt's Bees, the pomegranate lip balm, because it has a slight tint to it. I've been using this for years, and we'll continue to use this. It's the best lip balm ever, like $3.99 from Boots of Superdrug. But yes, this is the makeup I used to do, as I say, very, very basic, no wing, just very basic makeup, which is not bad, but it's just like, makeup's evolved so much since then, and you're gonna see that in future episodes. But yeah, so as I say, my latest step in my journey is the activism side, and really that's what I would recommend at the moment. As I was saying, you know, local councillors you're probably going to find at the moment are more aligned with why you got into politics and, you know, your beliefs, and again, it kind of links in with the networking thing, you know, because it just makes your life a lot richer, especially when it comes to politics, because you're going to get, as I say, even deeper of a variety of people's opinions and just people in general. But yeah, I would really highly recommend, and this is the point I wanted to end this on, and I thought I'm just going to do this on my phone. But this is the point I want to end with, is that getting involved in politics is really, really important, no matter who you are, but especially as a young person. Don't let society become an echo chamber, and I think this is another reason why I wanted to start this podcast, because it encourages variety, and it encourages a safe space. This is what I want to encourage, is a safe space for any opinions, any debates, any just exploring people's opinions and stances on all sorts of complex issues. As I say, the state of the world at the moment, especially when it comes to UK politics, is a mess. We can all agree. It's an absolute mess, no matter what side you're on. And as I say, I just want to create this safe space where anyone can have any opinion and we can just chill and relax, and it's a much more friendly environment rather than just kind of like the reporting the news and that's kind of be it kind of format, which there are plenty of. When I don't bash that, you know. I'm friends with Maya Tusi, that's his whole thing, you know. We are the media, you know. So it's yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to. But yeah, so this is the first episode of Playing in Politics. I know it's it's been so chaotic. I wasn't intending for it to be this chaotic, to be honest, and it's kind of like, ugh, I wish it wasn't so chaotic, but I got it done, and I'm proud of myself for that, you know. As I say, as I said at the beginning, I really want to leave this up to you guys in terms of what I talk about, what you want to learn more about, so I can learn more about it as well, and we can just talk about it, as I say, in the safe space, where anyone can have any opinion, and we can just open friendly debates, and just really make politics a less toxic place, I think, and a less toxic and heavy thing with so many expectations. You know, let's make a difference, you know. And I think that's another reason why I started this. So yeah, what's the next thing you want me to talk about? Leave your suggestions in the comments. And yeah, I hope this has helped somebody out there who wants to get involved in politics and has been toying around with trying to form good opinions, and maybe you're not quite agreeing with what the rest of your age group is saying, and you know you want to question things. Always question everything at all times. But yeah, if you want to do that, this is the place to do that. This is the place to, you know, to get educated on things. And just spread some awareness, and, you know, just, as I say, create that friendly environment. That's what I'm trying to do here, where we can just breathe a little bit, you know, breathe, let some things out, and as I say, this is the place to do that. So yeah, it is really important, no matter what age you are, to get informed in politics. And if you want to get involved, and then that's great, you know. If you want to try and promote a better environment when it comes to how our country is run, how your local area is run, you know. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. As I say, this is a new venture for me. I've never done this kind of content before, but I'm excited to see where this goes, and I hope you guys will come on this journey with me. Make sure to subscribe, click the notification bell. I'm going to try and upload every week. So yeah, whatever you want to see next week, as I say, leave your comments, leave your suggestions in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Playing in Politics. See you guys next week.